Wasim?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Can we begin? Is it time?
Yeah, just a moment, ma'am. Let more people join in, ma'am.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'll just mute myself and you just let me know when
Yeah,
I have to
exactly.
launch.
Exactly, ma'am.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. There are few people who are joining in. Let them join in so that we can start the session. So kindly, all are requested to wait.
Meanwhile, whoever is online, maybe you can give me a brief introduction of yourself.
Just a moment. Avasthi, ma'am, you are requested kindly unmute. Kindly introduce yourself.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, go.
I'm Pavni Suri. I'm a master's student at the University of Delhi, and I'm excited for the course.
Okay.
Okay.
So what brought you here in? Which discipline are you in?
English literature.
Okay. So what are your future plans?
Hopefully professorship, if everything goes right. The next step is to give my net, and then so on and so forth.
Okay.
Let me unmute some other participants.
So do you have any background in ENT? Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, there is one participant, Deepika Govardhan. Your request to kindly unmute, please. Okay, let me unmute another participant. Pavini Suri. Your request to unmute.
I just spoke.
Yeah, she just finished speaking.
Okay. Sorry. Shikha Datta Gupta. Your request to unmute.
Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Yes,
Can
Shika.
you all hear me? Hello.
Yes, Shika.
Okay, so I'm a PhD student in my second year, pursuing my PhD from the English and Foreign Languages University, Hyderabad, and my area of research is Jewish American literature.
Okay. So, what do you hope to learn from this workshop?
So the focus of the workshop is academic writing. So that is what I want to learn from this workshop. I have been writing papers, but then I don't know the techniques. I mean, I have not published any paper, or I just finished my first year, just completed my coursework. So I have a lot of doubts and also let's see. Yeah.
Okay, that's nice. Yeah, Muhammad Muzam.
Yeah, Muhammad Muzammil, kindly unmute yourself and give a brief.
Fine, sir. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So just give me a brief introduction of who you are, what you're doing.
Ma'am, I'm Mohammad Muzammil. I'm assistant professor at Department of Psychology, University of Kashmir. I'm interested to learn these skills of writing when it comes to writing the research papers in the field of higher education.
Mm-hmm. That's nice.
That's
Nice to have you
Thank you,
on.
ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
So, ma'am, shall we start the proceedings, ma'am?
Yes, 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 yes. I'm ready.
Thank you very much. Yeah. So, Honorable Resource Person for the session, Dr. Shree Deepa, Associate Professor, Center for English Language Studies, University of Hyderabad, and worthy participants. Good afternoon to all of you, and a warm welcome to the online workshop on academic writing for higher education. There are few participants, let me admit them. Okay. Let me introduce the Honorable Resource Person for this workshop.
Okay.
And the organizing NGO, that is Boston Education and Welfare Society. Honorable Resource Person Dr. Shree Deepa has been a part of Center for English Language Studies, University of Hyderabad from 2006. She has taught at various levels over the last 2 decades. She has been working, researching, and publishing in various areas of teaching and learning. Her content areas of interest include teaching of English to the visually impaired students at higher education level, and some areas of Indian philosophy. Dr. Shree Deepa calls herself a constructive thinker. She was awarded PhD on American poetry from Usmania University, Hyderabad in 2004. Apart from her 3 published books, 2 edited books, and 8 papers published in edited books, she has presented 32 papers in national and international conferences. She has convened and conducted many conferences and seminars. Apart from imparting training on writing skills, reading skills, spoken skills, and communication skills, she has been awarded with outstanding achievements in many other areas related to literature. She's a life member of OUCIP, which was formerly ASRC, and ELTAI and LEAD Foundation. Now let me tell you something about Boston Education and Welfare Society, the organizing NGO of this workshop. It is a society registered with the Registrar of Societies, Jammu and Kashmir. It has worked consistently to provide educational opportunities that are responsive to the community needs and endeavor to help students to meet their economic, social, and environmental and leadership challenge to become active participants in shaping the future. Boston Education and Welfare Society has conducted workshops in diverse fields, especially concerning higher education and research. I, Wasim Qadir, the organizing secretary of this workshop, is going to moderate in this workshop conducted by Boston Education and Welfare Society. Our goal is to work for the social welfare and education of common people by mobilizing the requisite resources. It's our honor to carry out this workshop on academic writing for higher education. So considering the time limitations now, I would like the Honorable Ma'am, Dr. Shree Deepa, to kindly start the session. Over to you, ma'am.
Yes, thank you so much, Wasim. It is a pleasure for me to be speaking to you this afternoon, and I welcome all the participants into this session. And I hope you take away something from these 2 hours, and I really hope that this is going to be useful for you. So with that, I'm just going to begin the session. And as I always do, we need to understand certain things before we actually get into it. So let me first explain the title over here. So the title reads like this: Academic Writing for Higher Education. So we need to understand the words in their proper context, and we need to define the limitations. We need to understand how the working definition arrives. So academic writing for me means any kind of writing that happens in the academic spaces. So it could be maybe a project proposal that you're writing, it could be an abstract, it could be an email that you're sending to your professor, it could be an assignment that you're writing, it could be a grant proposal that you're writing, it could be a research paper, it could be your dissertation, it could be anything. So anything that you write in the academic space is academic writing for me. There might be varied definitions that people often use, but for me, this is the definition. And I'm going to limit myself to the higher education level. When I say higher education, I also want to put in the UG and maybe class 12 onwards to, leading you to PhD or postdoc. So this is the area in which I'm going to be talking about. So let us understand, why is it that we need such a workshop at all? Like what I always talk to my students about, unless we know why we are here, how this is going to help us, there's no point in all of us being here. There's a specific need for teaching and training in academic writing, because we find that in my career, I have found, and as maybe a peer reviewer of many journals and peer reviewer for many, many important award offerings and awards, what I have found out is that people usually do not write very well. And it is possible to train people in writing. And the major reason for this, I have found out, is that we write as we speak. So I'm going to take a few responses from the participants over here. So whoever needs to speak, you can just unmute yourself and just very briefly, you make your response, you give us your response and you give us your comments, and then we will move forward. So I'm just going to ask you, is there a difference between speaking and writing at all? Have you ever found yourself writing as you speak, or maybe the other way around, where you speak as you write? Have you found yourself in such a situation? Can I get a few responses, please? Can I get a few responses?
Ma'am, when you speak, we use shortened forms much more. That's more natural. Normally,
Correct.
when we speak, we use shorter sentences than what we actually write.
Okay, I take that. Yes, we do that. Any more responses?
Also, ellipses and filler words, and
Right.
informal vocabulary.
Okay. Anything else that you can think of when you think of speaking and writing?
Ma'am, as far as I'm concerned, I think the speaking and writing are two different spheres. It's not necessarily for a person to be a good speaker and a good writer at the same time. One may be good in one sphere, for example, in the writing, but he may be a poor speaker. So this holds true for all of us. And whenever we, for example, write something, we just give our time to our nerves so that we can write more better and more elaborate and more comprehensively. Whereas when we speak about something, we don't have enough time to think about that as compared to when we write something. So writing is actually, it demands more resources on our part as compared to speaking. And it is more comprehensive than the speaking.
Okay. So what about writing? How does it differ? How does it differ when you write?
Ma'am, whenever we write, I'm think more cognitive
certain
skills.
Specific things. Yes.
Yeah, whenever we write, we need more cognitive skills. Like our thinking pattern should be of that we actually write cognitive skills. Like our thinking pattern should be of that we actually write in a comprehensive way and cover all the things regarding a particular theme. So this is not necessarily true while we speak. And I think if we are good writers, we may have an edge in speaking. But if we are good speaker, it's not necessary that we may be good writers. Because
go ahead.
Different spheres.
Yeah,
right,
I do agree that there are two different spheres. Yes. Yes. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I think writing is different from speaking because the matter here is the matter of time. it is so difficult to speak than to write, because with writing you have enough time to think about what the idea you want to write. But speaking, it's directly, so you don't have much time to think about grammar, about your fluency, about, so you just speak. So I think speaking is more difficult than writing. But also we need some techniques to be to write in a good manner.
Correct. I totally agree
Thank
with you, Samar. I totally agree with you. Thank you so much for making it easier for me. See, whether speaking is more difficult or writing is more difficult, I would say from my experience that both are difficult and easy at the same time, but in different ways. Like somebody already pointed out, speaking requires something called as spontaneity, whereas writing offers you some more editing time. You can't edit speech as you don't have that much time to edit while you speak when you compare to the kind of time that you have while you sit down and write. So you can always go back and you can edit your writing before you actually submit. But once you've spoken, the editing time is not available to you. So in other words, you are very spontaneous when you speak. And you have more of planning time, you require more of planning time when you write. So these are two different things that we must remember that we do when we actually sit down to write. Very often I found out that my students sit down and write as they speak. Even in an exam, when they have to write an answer, what they usually do is that they just go ahead and write. But writing requires something called as an editing cycle. You should go back and look at what all you have written before you actually submit. Remember what your teachers would have told you when they spoke about, revise your answer before you submit, or revise your essay before you submit, look at your essay before you submit. That kind of an editing cycle we often ignore when we do writing. And when it comes to academic writing, see, writing a research paper, writing your dissertation, writing an assignment, writing a project proposal, maybe writing a simple email to your professor, whoever, to your boss, to your HOD, whoever, you need to go back, check what you have written, and only then hit the submit button. But with speech, the moment your words come out of your mouth, it has been sent out of your inbox, so to speak. So spontaneity matters a lot with speaking, whereas with writing, you have the advantage of going back and editing. While, like somebody else rightly pointed out, a lot of short forms, a lot of incomplete expressions, a lot of fillers, these things get their entries into your speech, while these are unacceptable in writing. So with that background, we will just move ahead. So I'm going to give you a small work to do. These are expressions, these are spoken words. I just want you to maybe grab a paper and pencil and try and convert this speech into a written text. Can you just take a couple of moments and do that? As in speech, it says, because the jobs are even more complex, programs to train people will take longer. Can you convert this into written text? Can you try that? Like I said, this workshop is going to be interactive. So there is some work for you to do rather than me sitting down and lecturing. Can you try and convert this into written text? You just have to unmute yourself and say yes, no, something, so that I know. Because we are not face to face right now.
Yes, ma'am, we are doing it.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you. Please go ahead. Let me make this easier for you. So I'm just going to put the written text for you. And there's one more such exercise coming your way. So if you have to convert the speech into a written text, this is how you do it. Because the jobs are even more complex, programs to train people will take longer. The increased complexity of tasks will lead to the extension of the duration of training programs. See how programs to train people has been converted into training programs. Even more complex has been changed to increased complexity, and how jobs has been converted into tasks and will take longer has been changed to the extension of the duration of training programs. Do you see that? So this is the kind of written text that I want you to work on. I'm just going to go ahead and give you another spoken text to convert into written text. So whenever I'd visited there before, I'd ended up feeling that it would be futile if I tried to do anything more. So supposing you're one of those researchers, you went and conducted an interview and you transcribed the interview. And how is it that you're going to convert this interview response into a statement in your research paper? This is what we are trying to do now. There would be surveys, there would be responses during your data collection, there would be all kinds of things. So how do you convert this speech expression into a written text, academically written text? Something that can go into your research paper.
Can I try?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Based on my earlier visits, I came to the conclusion. About the futility of trying to do anything more.
Okay, anything more? Let's see what I've got. See, anything more. Is that an academic expression?
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
A feeling of futility and helplessness overwhelmed me after every visit to that place.
Overwhelmed me. When you're talking of academic writing, you try and minimize the usage of, if it's a research paper, the usage of personal pronouns. So if it is an email that you write to your supervisor, maybe you write to somebody else, that's all right. But if it's a research paper, this is what you do. You use less of I and we. You substitute that with the expression the researcher.
Okay, all right.
So every previous visit had left us with a sense of the futility of further action. Right. See, look, let's come from the right to the left. Futility of further action. This is how this gets written, that the conversion from it would be futile if I tried to do anything more. So the I is gone, futile has become futility, anything more has become further action. And I'd ended up feeling that, that gets converted into, had left us with a sense of futility. So ended up feeling has become with a sense. And then whenever I visited there before is converted into every previous visit. See how different it is? One more. Go ahead.
Ma'am, in the previous example, we converted I from us. Is that a standard rule, or is it specific to analysis that is generated from conversation?
It depends. See, you try and minimize I, but if you still want to use I, it becomes left me or left us as a preferred usage over there. That works really well if you have a team working with you. But if you're doing it alone,
Sorry.
go ahead.
Wouldn't the data change if we convert I from us?
It would. See, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. If it's a team, you can say us.
Okay.
If it's not a team, then you can say had left me or left the researcher. Instead of me, left the researcher.
Left the researcher. Okay.
Or even if you have somebody else, it need not be the researcher alone. See, researches don't get done alone. You might have a team, you might have an observer with you, you might have assistants with you. So if that is the case, then you can use us. But if you are alone and you do not want to, have the plural over there, you can say had left the researcher. Okay. Can we do the third one? Yes. Yes, please go ahead. Deepika. Deepika, go ahead.
I think there is connectivity issue with Deepika.
Okay, anybody else? Or can I give you away the answer?
Excuse me.
Yes.
Excuse me. I am PhD student. While we write our PhD, we should not use the personal pronouns I and we. We should minimize them.
Yes, you should not. Yes, yes.
We should not use this personal pronoun.
No, you should not use. No, no.
Okay.
You can say the
so
researcher.
We can use in. Okay.
You should use the researcher.
Okay.
Now, the reason why you don't do that is because you are trying to bring in the objectivity. The moment you say I and we, what happens is that you're trying to get into research. Research is an objective study. You're only reporting what you have seen. You're only looking at the data. You're working with the data, but you're a non-participant. You are free from bias.
Even when I want to write my point of view, for example, I will say, I think, I believe.
No, you don't write I think at all in research papers. Because thinking is something that happens inside.
No. If I want to mention my opinion.
So the researcher feels that, the researcher deduces that, because what you feel, nobody is bothered about that. What you have found out is what people are bothered about. That is what research is. Because the platform needs a lot of evidence for everything that you say. You get the point.
Because we are yes.
Yes.
Because we treat with facts.
Yes. You work with data. You are a non-participant over there. So even if you are arriving at conclusions, it must be evidence-based.
Okay.
You can say, looking at what the above data says, based on that, it can be concluded, it seems that, it appears that, we can deduce that, we can conclude that. So it should be based on something. The evidence must be there. So
Okay,
research
thank you.
writing is something like something like what you do as a lawyer. You argue for a case. So you present all the evidences and argue for the case for every statement that you make.
Thank you.
Okay. Shall I
I
let you?
can
Okay.
speak.
Shall I help
Am I
you?
audible?
Yes, please.
Hello.
May I?
Yes, you are. Yeah.
Hi, this is Mustafa.
Whoever, just one by one.
Yeah, just a
Yeah.
moment.
One
Actually,
by one,
organizing
please.
secretary this side, meeting session will end, so we will have a 5 minutes of break. Then everybody will get a chance. After 5
Okay.
minutes,
Okay.
all worthy participants are requested kindly join back. So wait a 5 minutes and
Okay.
let me be back.
So meanwhile, I'm just going to go ahead and display it.
Okay,
The
ma'am.
cities in Switzerland had once been peaceful, but they changed when people became violent. So this gets written like this. Violence changed the face of once peaceful Swiss cities. Also look at the number of words that you're using while you're writing. It's drastically reduced from what you speak. So verbosity is available in speech. Whereas when you come to writing, the number of words that you use drastically reduces. You use fewer words. Does that make sense? Do you agree? I
Yes,
hope you do. So let me move ahead. So I've got one more for you. Okay, there we are. So Wasim is working with the free version of Zoom. So I guess we're going to get stopped at every 40 minutes. And I don't have a problem with that. So let's move ahead and let me speed it up a little bit for you. So the fourth example over here, you can see, because the technology has improved, it's less risky than it used to be when you installed, wait, let me just move the screen a little bit. When you install them at the same time, and it doesn't cost so much either. This gets written like this. Improvements in technology have reduced the risks and high costs associated with simultaneous installation. And let me caution you that this is just an introduction to academic writing. So don't expect miracles over here. And if it is possible, maybe with Wasim's help, we can go ahead and have a few more sessions, maybe a little later on. So this is just going to be an introductory session. So do not expect any miracles to happen. All right.
Yes, ma'am.
So like I said before, these are certain things that get written in the academic spaces. So you, if you are a teacher, you write textbooks, you use textbooks. If you're a researcher, you use diaries, notes, research papers, research books, project proposals, reports, assignments, essays, exams, research proposals, again, research papers, abstracts, dissertations, etc. This list is not exhaustive. You have so many different kinds of writings. So I'm just going to give you an overall view that is applicable when you write all of these. So who writes for whom and what gets written? This is something that you must remember. So those of you who are serious about academic writing, you might want to take a paper and pencil and note down these things, because these things you are not going to find anywhere else. So you need to understand who is it that is writing. For example, who writes assignments and essays? And who writes textbooks? Who writes project proposals? So there are two kinds of people in the academic space. One is the teacher, who can also be a materials writer. Teacher can also be a researcher. And the other is a student or a future researcher or a current researcher. So teacher might be writing textbooks, diaries, notes, whatever research papers, so on and so forth, and a student or a future researcher or a current researcher would be writing these things. So whatever I'm going to talk to you about will be applicable to both. So it's going to be an overview of what academic writing is all about and what are the things that you need to do with your mind before you write, while you write, and after you write. All right, so I'm not going to go into nuances of grammar here, but I'm just going to be giving you an awareness kind of a workshop. So in order to write, you need to have a good writing plan. And what do I mean by writing plan is this. You need to have a purpose for which you're writing. So there's a purpose for writing, right? And then you're writing for somebody. There's a purpose, there's a reason why you're writing. And two, there's a person or a group of people for whom you're writing, the audience. And number three, the language in which you write. And since India is a multilingual country, why do you use English? Why do you prefer this language over that? In Hindi being the official language, and you are somewhere in the south where the state has its own language. So which language are you going to write? Which language are you going to use while you write this? And we have certain nuances of language which we will look at briefly. So, and there are writing conventions. What do I mean by conventions? Is that there are certain templates that you use. For example, writing an email is very different from writing a research proposal, which is very different from writing an assignment, which is very different from writing an essay answer in an exam, which is very different from writing a research proposal, which is very different from writing your dissertation. Because dissertation is about 150 pages to 250 pages, whereas an answer that you write in an exam may be just a few hundred words. So the conventions of it you need to follow. And you should be able to adjust to the conventions. It's a good idea to know what these conventions are, but if you're writing a research paper, usually people give you a lot of help from the publishing area. So whichever journal that you're trying to publish in, go and look at what conventions they have. So that is a good place to begin. So when I say purpose, what do you mean by awareness of the purpose of writing? These are certain questions that you need to have in your mind before you actually start writing. One, why am I writing? Why am I not just picking up a phone call and talking to this person? Why am I writing? All right. For example, even if we are teachers, I can just go ahead and give a lecture. Why is it that I need to write a research paper? One, of course, yes, you need promotions, and now publication has become a major thing. And if you're a research scholar, PhD scholar, you need to have 2 or 3 publications before you submit your final dissertation. Apart from all those necessities, you need to understand, you need to ask yourself this question, why am I writing? Because writing is usually a piece of evidence. It is documentation. It is subject to the court of law. Anything that you write can be used as evidence. For example, if you're trying to make a patent out of something. So the person who has written about it first becomes the owner of the patent. Somebody who files it first becomes the owner. So writing is a piece of evidence, and it's a piece of documentation. It is a face of a person that you are. It is the face of the research that you have done. And that is why you are writing. You need to have this purpose in your head before you sit down to write. The second question that you need to ask yourself is, what is it that I'm writing about? What's the main idea? Usually you start this off with the area in which you research, or maybe you come up with a title, you come up with an idea. Many research scholars come up with ideas. In my discipline of language teaching, for example, many students come back and tell me, ma'am, we have the engineering students and they have major issues with language and the industrial needs are different, whereas what gets taught in the classroom is different. So I want to look at what is the connection between what is getting taught in the classroom and what are the industry needs. So that is the main idea. And from the main idea, if you're doing a research paper or maybe a research study for MPhil or PhD or whatever, so you come up with something called as either the hypothesis or research questions, or it is the research gap. So you need to have a main idea. Coming to the main idea and bringing your focus to the main idea is very, very important. It can be as broad. Many supervisors will tell you this area is too broad, or some other people will come back and tell you this is not practicable. You think this is possible, and this cannot be done. This can be done. You're too broad. You're too narrow. All that they're trying to do is trying to let you find out, let you arrive at what is called as the main idea. The third thing is, how best can I convey this main idea of mine? This also, takes into account the kind of research methodology that you're going to follow, what kind of data samples you're going to collect. Is it going to be at school level? Is it going to be college level? Is it going to be this text? Is it going to be that text? Is it going to be this industry? All of that. So it depends on the main idea, and whatever is the main idea, you need to also ask yourself, how best can I convey my main idea? Is it through a research paper? Is it too big an idea to do a PhD on? Or is it too small an idea for a PhD? Is it the right kind of idea for a research paper? So what do I do in an assignment? Is this okay for an assignment? So when you ask yourself all these questions, you are working in the realm of how best can I convey it? Then, number 4, very important, what should I do so that I don't mess it up? You don't underdo it, you don't overdo it. You just do the right thing. And how do you do the right thing? By looking at what samples are already available in the market on this. For example, if you're writing a research paper for a journal, if you've identified a journal, you go to the journal and look at what kind of length they're looking at, what kind of language they're looking at, what kind of areas are they looking at, what kind of publications are already there. When you look at all of these, then this question gets answered. What should I do so that I don't mess it up? Because there would be some journals which ask you for shorter articles, maybe 800 words, 5,000 words. Sometimes there are certain Scopus articles that ask you to write 40 pages. So you do not know. You shouldn't be over-prepared, you shouldn't be under-prepared. So for all of that, you need to ask yourself, what should I do so that I don't mess it up? If you're writing a dissertation, you find out in your area, what is the number of pages? What is the kind of studies that people have done? What is the data size sample? Is 9 too small for me? Is 36 too big for me? Can I handle it? All these answers are to this question, what should I do so that I don't mess it up? It's a good idea to talk to your supervisor, all right? Or your co-author, whoever that is. So the next question is about the awareness of the audience. This is very important. Who am I writing this for? If I'm writing an answer in an exam paper, it is for my teacher. If I'm writing a research article, it is for the world to know what my ideas are, what my discoveries are, what is the result of my research. If it's a PhD dissertation, it's again to inform the world of what cutting edge research that you have done. All right. So this question is going to help you. Who is going to read my document? How important is this person or group of people? The next is, why am I writing to this person? Or why am I writing to this audience? I'm writing to this audience because here is a research gap that I have found. There are no studies available in this particular area. So that is why I'm going ahead and doing my research and writing this research paper. Very often when you apply for your PhD, your supervisor or future supervisor will probably ask you, why do you want to work in this area? What is the research gap? Have you already read about what work is available in this area? Very often we wouldn't have. So you need to read up and find out, identify the research gap and go back to your supervisor and say, this is the research gap that I have identified and I need to fill in this gap. And hence, I'm going to do my research here. And hence, I'm going to write this research paper. So that gives you the reason for writing. Okay? Or it is a subject in which the textbook is not available, and if the teacher wants to write the textbook, and the teacher says, okay, whatever materials that are available in the market, or whatever that's available for prescription in my university, in my college, this is not working for me. So I'm going to go ahead and produce my own materials. So I am writing. To this person means here the audience. So will this person or the audience understand my communication? That's very important. Okay, if you're writing for people in the discipline, then there's a different kind of language that you're going to use. But if you're writing a textbook for a child, for say class 3, it's going to be different. It's not going to be the same. So there are so many other things that you need to understand about the audience. What is it that the audience needs before you sit down to write? And very important, what can happen if I mess up? Because I put in a lot of effort into this paper and I get rejected. I put in a lot of efforts to write my first chapter, second chapter, and submit it to my supervisor. The supervisor rejects it. I feel bad. So you need to take precautionary steps to find out how you don't mess up. So find out from the supervisor, find out from the publisher, find out from the journal what steps you can take so that you don't mess it up, so that whatever effort you're putting into your paper, your dissertation, your textbook gets rewarded and it just doesn't go down the drain. Because this is a lot of serious work. This consumes a lot of your time, peace, energy. All of you would agree with me on that. So you need to understand and answer this question that you shouldn't be messing it up. Here, the first line of defense for your research article would be the editor, would be the peer reviewers. Or if it's a dissertation, it could be your supervisor. And from the supervisor, it's going to go into all those examiners. And from those examiners, your dissertation is going to go public and be published into a book. You do not know. So you need to take all steps to see that your efforts, whatever little or whatever big efforts that you put in, needs to be rewarded properly. So this question is very, very important. There are many people that I have seen who just drop out because they just can't hold up to the expectations of the audience. So they just drop out. Dropping out is not an option if you are walking in the right direction, if you're moving in the right direction, if you're engaging in the right direction. So these questions, however simple they may be, they would be saving you in the nick of the moment. So you need to understand that. The next part is the ABCs of writing. So now that you've identified all of these, you're going to sit down to write. And before you sit down to write, you need to understand all of these things. You need to, when I say ABCs, A stands for accuracy, B stands for brevity, C stands for clarity. Now, what is accuracy? Accuracy is the correctness of language and the content. So before you sit down, there are some people, some supervisors, and some writers who would tell you that you need to read a lot before you sit down to write. There'll be another group of people that tell you, you need to write first, and then you go ahead and read. There'll be another group of people that tell you, you need to write and read simultaneously. Now, which is the right way? I do not know. You'll have to find out all for yourself. So there's no set right way. For me, if you ask me what I do, I read and write simultaneously. So that as I'm writing, I know I'm going in the right direction because I will be reading, I have all these readings. But I will focus more on writing because I do not want to be too influenced by what I read. Because if people say that they're going to read, and then sit down to write, all these things that you read, they're just going to derail you from your original area of work. So you need to keep reading, yes, but you need to keep reading without getting influenced by them. You should be influenced only by the ideas that have come up in your mind. You should never let go of what is in your mind. So some of my students, I always suggest that you write the area, you write the title and put it up on a wall in the room that's your study room. And you keep looking at it so that you don't lose your focus. So correctness of language is very important. Correctness of content is also very important. And you shouldn't be derailed from your content area. And you shouldn't be derailed by inaccurate language that you use. When I say language, I just don't mean the syntax or the vocabulary alone. You would, if you're working in different disciplines, say somebody is from psychology here, the kind of language that these people use is different from the kind of language that the rest of the disciplines use. For example, verbosity, I'm told, is celebrated in social sciences, in literature, whereas verbosity is not celebrated in the field of sciences. So find out. And also, it's a good place to look at these journals that you hope to publish in. You just get into those journals and find out what kind of language, what is the level of language that they use. I have found out that very serious ideas get written in some of the US journals where they prefer simpler sentences. They don't like complex sentences at all. They always say that it should be accessible to the layman. So whatever higher ideas that you have, whatever serious ideas that you have, you should be able to put it in simple words. And it should be free of jargon. So find out from all those journals. Find out from your supervisor. All right? And many times, ambiguity depends on the accuracy or the inaccuracy of language used to transmit the information into writing. In a few moments, I'm going to give you an example of what that is. And how do I get this question? Ma'am, what do I do? How do I produce accurate sentences? How do I do all of that? So there's only one way, that is regular medication. Write 3 times a week, whatever it is. It could be a diary, it could be anything. You sit down and write. The more you write, the better you get at it. So when I say accuracy, I'm just giving you an example of what I mean by accuracy. The one with the asterisk is a wrongly written sentence, which is not acceptable. And the one below that is, so I just leave that to you to read. Writing an email, say to the journal, people do not have time to read long texts. Similarly, people don't want a lot of padding in your dissertations, in your research articles. So keep it short and sweet. And also, you need to understand, whenever you think of brevity, you need to understand that every word that you write has a purpose. Not just the word. Every punctuation mark has a purpose over there. You can't substitute, you can't use wrong punctuation marks. So if you're putting a comma there, if you're putting a full stop there, if you're beginning an inverted commas, you're putting them, you're opening parentheses, all of them have some or the other meaning. And when it comes from your head as the writer, you need to know exactly what the comma does. You need to know exactly what that word does. Without that, writing is not going to be meaningful at all to the reader. But having said that, do not eliminate important information. Include them and highlight them. Avoid circumlocutions. I'm sure all of you would have done this. I have done this in my class 10, class 9, writing social studies answers. When I have nothing to say, when I run out of things to say, I go round and round and round saying the same thing using different words. That is called circumlocution. Just go round and round and round, just fill up pages. No, don't do that. Because you stand a great risk of being rejected by journals. You stand a great risk of getting your PhDs returned. Do not do circumlocutions while you write for research, while you write in the academic space. Don't do that. Because wordiness distracts the reader and causes ambiguity. The reader would have to grope for the point. How often have you read a storybook, have you read whatever, and found out, okay, what is he trying to say? You should never leave your audience, that is the reader of your research paper or your dissertation, with this feeling. Okay, what is this person trying to say? I'm not able to make sense. If that is what is happening, so what is bothering you, what's troubling you is your wordiness and lack of brevity, perhaps. You need to look at that. So look at some examples. As usual, the asterisk is the wrong way of writing. So it says the supply data of air trans issues, but data seems not to help much. That's too much. So the supplied or the received data of the air trans issues was not very helpful. Or if I have to redo this, I would also remove the word very. Was not helpful. That's it. Was not helpful takes care of it. So I just go back to every sentence that I write and remove all the words that I think are not necessary there. Similarly, one more example. As per your request here, I'm sending you all the details. Please let me know if you have any concern on the same. So it could be said like this. I'm sending you all the data. Please let me know if there's any problem, concern. These examples come from emails, actual emails that I looked at in a different project. So these were written by actual people in a computer related firm. So when you think of data, before you start to write your research paper or your dissertation, you need to ask yourself this question. Do I have all the information with me? Have I got all the data with me? Do I have the responses of all the research tools that I have used for collecting my data? Or how many, in my proposal, I have committed to 38 participants. So do I have 38 responses? Very often you would find that you might not have 38. You might just have 30. You have to go back and check your proposal and alter your proposal and change that 38 into 30. Because as a researcher, as a principal investigator in a project, it is always possible that you do not have the numbers right. Or maybe you have committed to 38, you have 40 responses. You do not know. So go back and reorganize. Then, have I collected all the ideas that I need, not want to convey? Very often, this is why you need to remove the I when you write your research papers. Because you want to say a million things, or very often you do not have anything to say. All right? So go back to your proposal, go back to your abstract, go back to what you planned out. Like I said, you have that title, you have that area written out on a big chart and which is pasted in your room on the wall. You go back and look at that. So have I collected all the ideas? Is this enough? So if it is not enough, at this stage, what you need to do is you need to go back and collect some more. Or maybe throw out or set aside some more. If you have too much data, then you set that aside. It all depends on what's the time available and how much of writing space is available, so on and so forth. And number 3, have I put the information in the order of importance? It is better done keeping your reader in mind. And if it's a dissertation, it's better done keeping your research questions, keeping your hypothesis in mind, looking at the research gap. Very often I've had my students not relating the data to the research questions at all. They would have come up with some hypothesis, they would have come up with some other research questions. When they're reporting the data, when they're projecting the data has no connection whatsoever to the research question or the hypothesis. That's a serious problem. because they have spent so much time and effort trying to put together all of these. But it just doesn't do the job of answering the research questions. What for? You've lost 2 years of your life, the prime youth of your life, as I always tell my students. It has to end up and it has to be fruitful for you. You have to come out with a PhD degree or with a publication. So this is very important. And every sentence that you put, every little data that you report, everything that you write, you need to ask yourself this question. Why am I putting this here? Why am I writing about this? Does my reader need this information in order to understand, in order to answer the research questions, or in order to make sense for the hypothesis, whether I keep the hypothesis, I reject the hypothesis, what do I do with the hypothesis? So you need to understand, you need to ask yourself this question time and again. Why does my reader need this information? And the answer that you should come up with is that if I don't put this information, my reader will not understand. So you make a checklist of all of that. So these questions are very important. So you need to make a note of them, and this is going to help you while you're sitting down to write. And then, very important, so you're going to be so tired after writing your data analysis and after putting up all those tables, doing a qualitative, quantitative analysis, whatever, you forget to look at your language. You're so fatigued that you say, enough is enough. I just want to get rid of this now. I've spent too much time and effort. But then, no, you can't give up yet. You need to look at how good is your language in this document, in this research paper, in this dissertation. So if you're too fatigued, you find somebody who's good in language and you send this document to this person that you trust, ask them to look at it and report any language errors. Ask them for readability factor. Ask them if this makes sense to them. Because you will be so much into writing your paper or your dissertation or your project proposal, things will not make sense to you anymore. So don't feel bad about it. Don't think that, okay, oh God, why me? I think I'm the only person who's going through this. No, everybody goes through the same thing. So it's not you alone. Take help from somebody to look at your language issues, but make sure that this person is good with language. So clarity, the third thing that you need to think of is clarity. What do I mean by clarity? You have something called as conceptual clarity. You need to align your data properly with your research questions. You need to make sure that whatever data you're reporting, whatever data you're analyzing, whatever your conclusions are, they are clear in terms of concepts that you're trying to put forth. And then, very important, this conceptual clarity gets realized with grammatical clarity. When you say grammatical clarity, it's not just how you write your sentences. No, it's not, because at MA level, at PhD levels, you already have a good amount of language. But then you might not be so good with punctuation. And you're so deeply involved in your project that you forget the pronoun reference. For example, you use this word this and that in your research paper. So what does this mean? What do you mean when you say that? That study in your historical background or theoretical framework, you give a big list of references, citations, quotations, all of that. But then you said that study. Now, which study? Which study? The study of certain date, or maybe the person, or the title of the study. You need to give proper pronoun reference. This is possible when you hand in your document to another person, another trusted person, to look for clarity. See, for example, somebody says, punctuation is not important. Somebody who doesn't belong to the English discipline would say, oh, what about a comma? You English teachers, you always make a big fuss about a comma. No, look at this. If you just insert this comma over here, leave him not, kill him, it means that you want this fellow to be killed. But supposing I shift the comma, leave him, not kill him. So between the second and between this sentence and this sentence, all that you're doing, the words are the same. The final punctuation mark is the same. The exclamation mark is the same. All that's done here is that you're shifting the comma from one place to another place. This changes the meaning, doesn't it? Leave him not, kill him. Leave him not, kill him. Look at the importance of comma shift. Like I said earlier, you should know exactly where the comma goes. Very often I've had students who would say, oh ma'am, the sentence is too long. I think it's running into a few lines, so I need to insert a comma. So let me just put a comma here and there. No, there's no here and there. If it is here, it has a meaning. If it is there, it has another meaning. So it's not just here and there. So, and many people also tell me that I have very good language, I have very good spoken language, I have good syntax, so I can write well. No, you can't, because look at this. A plumber wrote to WHO saying that he found hydrochloric acid very good for cleaning clogged drains. The WHO replied, they said, the efficacy of hydrochloric acid is indisputable, but the corrosive residue is incompatible with metallic permanence. The plumber wrote back and thanked them for agreeing with him. If you look at this sentence that the WHO wrote, it doesn't have any syntax issues, it doesn't have any vocabulary issues, it doesn't have any of those issues. Syntactically it is correct, grammatically it is correct, vocabulary use is right, everything is right. But then the plumber wrote back and thanked them for agreeing with him. The WHO again replied, we cannot assume responsibility for the production of toxic and noxious residues with hydrochloric acid and suggest that you use an alternative procedure. The plumber thanked yet again for agreeing with him. Finally, the WHO wrote, do not use acid to clean pipes, it is harmful. See, look at this. The awareness of the audience is missing over here. The audience is a plumber. All that he wants to know is whether he can use hydrochloric acid for cleaning pipes or not. So you cannot, if you're speaking to a chemist, this language is okay. But if you're speaking to a plumber, this language is not acceptable because it hasn't communicated what they want to communicate. Because the ultimate reason why you're writing to somebody is to make your ideas explicit to them, right? But if he doesn't understand, what's the big point? It's just going back and forth. You're wasting your time, you're wasting the other person's time. So you need to know who you're writing to, who's your audience, why is it that you're writing, what is the purpose, all of that. And how do you bring about all of these things? Very small things called as signaling words. Now, what are these words? For example, signaling words help you make everything explicit. Explicitity is one of the features of academic writing. This is very well understood by scientists because they make everything explicit. For example, if you have to report a scientific experiment, what they usually do is they say aims and objectives and materials required, a 20 ml beaker, a Bunsen burner, a matchbox, all of that. So explicitness has to do with reporting everything that you did as you did them. And signaling words help you a lot in bringing about this explicitity. Because and explicitness is not just with data, it's also with sentences that you write. For example, the first sentence that you write must be linked to the second sentence. The first idea that is found in the first sentence must be logically linked to the second sentence that you write, to the idea that is present in the second sentence. And the first paragraph should logically flow into the second paragraph. So the first chapter should logically flow into the conclusion chapter. The second chapter must be logically related to the first chapter. The fifth chapter must be related to the second chapter. So how do you do all of this? You do all of this by using signaling words. For example, you look at this text. The Bristol 167 was to be Britain's great new advance, and so on. Okay, am I online? Is everybody online?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, there are few participants
okay.
joining again. Yes.
Okay. I'm so
Yes,
sorry
ma'am.
that I'm so sorry that this is getting disconnected. So maybe next time we can try another platform such as Google Meet or something, which doesn't disconnect. I do not know. So I'm technologically challenged. That's how I call myself. I'm not very good with these online platforms. So you must bear with me because I get easily spooked. All right.
Ma'am,
Let me go
I
back
have
to
a
the
question.
Yes, please go ahead.
Ma'am, as you were saying that about incorrectness, so sometimes
Yeah.
I don't get to know that I am writing something incorrect. So how to get to know that I am writing something which is incorrect? Sometimes you don't know you're writing incorrect.
Yeah, it's always better to check with your supervisor or a trusted friend who is good with language. Because if
If you don't
knew,
have someone with whom you can check.
you should find that someone. Very important. Because what happens is if you knew, you wouldn't be making that mistake. So you make these mistakes for two reasons. One, you're fatigued. You're so fatigued, you're so involved in your dissertation, you're so involved with your research study that even if you make mistakes, it doesn't come and hit you. It doesn't show to you.
Yes,
So
yes.
that is one of the reasons. The second reason is that you naturally have certain faults within your language. For example, I have
Yes.
my students who have a subject-verb concord problem. So if you are able to identify where your problem is, you go back to those sentences and correct them. Or these days you have certain online tools, Grammarly, and certain other things that can help you. And if you're writing on the computer, I think it already shows you the green line and the
Yes,
red
yes,
lines. So those things will help you. But in
Okay.
research, it's always good to have somebody who's trusted with you, because
Okay.
you
Thank you, ma'am.
cannot do these things alone. Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I go ahead? So here what happens is that if you look at this text, the Bristol 167 was to be Britain's great new advance on American type, so on and so forth. You have this word, however. I've just highlighted that for you because this word, however, means that whatever I've said here, okay, having said that, I'm going to shift. So I'm going to make a counter argument. So this word, however, helps you make that counter argument. So it has a specific purpose of introducing a counter argument. Supposing you replace this, however, with furthermore, that has an additive function. Furthermore becomes an additive function. However becomes a contrary function. Okay, so you're just going to give the opposite argument. And you're going to be using a lot of these words. For example, first, second, lastly, but not at last. In summary, the study proves that. In conclusion, it can be said that. So these are usually ignored by writers. And these are the things that actually bring meaning into whatever you write. But we ignore them. We think, okay, it's just a word. This has no meaning on its own. But then these signaling words connect one idea to another. They connect one sentence to another. So these are very important. You need to pay a lot of attention to this. So explaining and rephrasing markers. Yes?
Ma'am, sorry to interrupt.
Yes, Wasim?
you. I am Wasim. So there is no, PPT is not visible. Kindly share the PPT.
Uh-oh. Oh, wait, 1 second.
Yes.
What happened? Uh-oh. Just give me a second. So didn't I share it? What did I do? Wait. Share screen. I think I forgot to do that.
Yes, exactly.
What happened? Wait. I'm still on Zoom. I'm not able to find share screen at all. No, the share screen button itself is not there. Uh-oh. I'm not able to find that button, Wasim.
Okay, ma'am. It's okay, ma'am. You can continue, ma'am.
So shall I just
Initially,
go ahead?
madam.
Because we're just
PPT and then
I was able to.
Is Muzammil,
Wait,
Dr. Muzammil there? Kindly.
The pop-up is not there. I'm not able to find that. I don't know what happened, but I'm not able to find the share screen. But anyway, I'll just voice it over, not a problem.
Okay, it's okay, ma'am.
So explaining and rephrasing markers, you can keep using. For example, words like, in other words, that is to say, it was felt that, more. For example, for instance, upon upgradation of the fields, and the problem is, as it were, could be solved theoretically, but when we, such words will help you make sense. Just give me a minute. I think I have another task for you to do, and for that I need you to get the screen. Wasim, can you just help me? I'm able to see you. Hide video, it says.
Yes,
Exit
exactly. Actually, there is a
video.
connectivity issue.
Yes, there I got it.
Okay.
Yes, I got it. Because you must forgive me. Like I said, this is, I'm not very good with, now are you able to see?
Yes, it is. It's visible now, ma'am. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'm extremely sorry it was not visible earlier. My bad.
It's okay, ma'am.
There you go. So read the following paragraph and make improvements. So just take 1 minute and tell me what improvements you can make. I would call Wagner a subjective artist. What I mean is that his art had its source in his personality. His work was virtually independent. I always feel of the epoch in which he lived. See, there are no grammar issues here. There are no punctuation issues here, right? But if you have to make improvements, look at this. In an academic text, this is how you write. So somebody was asking me whether I can use I or not. Look at how it gets changed, how it gets passivized. Wagner was what might be called a subjective. Look at this word, what might be called. Why do you think this is necessary? Because in academic writing, you have what is called as hedging. Because it's very different from what you speak. Somebody was telling me about the opinions. Yes, your opinions matter, but then you'll have to hedge your opinions because research writing is serious writing and you cannot make generalizations. That is very important for you to understand. Whatever statement that you come up with, whatever conclusion that you come up with, whatever finding that you come up with will have to be backed by the evidence. And you have to limit yourself to what is called as this evidence. Because we also have a section in our dissertations which is titled as limitations, where you put in all the disclaimers, so to speak, where you say, this study was conducted on a limited number of participants, say 30. We do not know if it works on larger groups. Very often in my discipline, in the discipline of ELT, we conduct and report studies where we report research on as few as 9 participants, 8 participants. And then we say this was conducted on just 9 participants. We do not know if the results will vary if the number increased. So data size. You can't make generalizations or sweeping statements in research writing. So even here, what might be called a subjective artist. So Wagner is somebody that we are talking about here. So this is my opinion. In my opinion, he is called a subjective artist. But in somebody else's opinion, particularly in research, you'll find that you don't have one single opinion on anything that you research on. You will always find a counter argument. So how do I display that I understand that there are counter arguments, there are counter belief systems? What you do is you add these words, what might be called as a subjective artist. And what is the reason for what I say here? In that his art had its source in his personality. Okay, so this is the reason for me to believe that he is a subjective artist. I can't say, okay, Wagner is a useless fellow. That is what it says here. I would call Wagner a subjective artist. I can call anybody anything I want, but then when I'm writing it, like I said, it is a written document. It can be submitted in the court of law as evidence. So you need to be very careful whenever you write. Even if it's an email, a WhatsApp text, whatever it is, because that can be admitted in the court of law as an evidence. And in the least sense, it becomes the evidence for your claims that you make in your research. So, and I also need to say, why is it that I call him a subjective artist? I call him a subjective artist for this reason. What is the reason? That his art had its source in his personality. Then his work seems virtually independent. Now I have to explain what do I mean by his art and his personality, this link. So this line kind of explains. Okay, so on the other hand, see, this is retained here. On the other hand is retained here. Back can be considered an objective artist. So I just can't say this fellow is a subjective artist and leave it at that. I need to complete the argument by bringing in somebody else who is considered an objective artist. Why do I call him an objective artist? Because he seems to have worked. He seems to have worked. See, from whatever data I have observed, from whatever data I have with me, with whatever I have analyzed, with that, I need to conclude that he has worked only with the forms and ideas that his time offered him, feeling no inner compulsion to open out new paths. You see, the same ideas written in 2 different forms. One is with personal pronouns and the other is without it. And look at how it gets written. And this is academic writing, and this is academic speech, perhaps. If you're delivering the same research paper in a conference, for instance, if you're speaking to the audience, you can use this language. But if you're writing, this is the language that you use. Or if you're teaching a class on different kinds of artists, this is what you can. This is the kind of language that you can use. But if you're writing, you've got to use this kind of language, okay? And very quickly, I have 3 different texts for you. Remember these questions when you read those texts. First, where would you find these texts printed? What do you think is the source of these texts? How did you find out what are the common features found in all the three texts. So quickly, I'm going to take you through 4 different texts, text A, B, C, and D. So quickly glance through from top to bottom and make notes if you want to on paper and using a paper and pencil. So text A, quickly look at it. Make notes because I'm going to shift the screen. So just skim through. Identify certain features. How much time? I'm just going to look at the clock. All right.
Oh, no, that's
Okay,
very
Masim
good.
here says, pardon me? Can I move on to the next text?
Yes, ma'am, please.
This is text B. Yes, text B. Look at text B. I'm going to move on to text C now. And the last text, text D. I'm just going to give you a brief look at the previous text. Text C for you. Text B for you. And text A for you. So where do you think text A can be found? And how did you arrive at that discovery? Somebody? Anybody?
Madam, it seems like the lecture of a teacher, and because there are a lot of
Okay.
questions,
Why do you think?
there are
Okay.
a few questions, rhetorical questions, and like a teacher style, the questions are raised and then
Right.
they are answered. That's my
Very
argument.
good. So, okay, thank you. What about text B?
Ma'am, it's a textbook on biology.
It is, okay. Which level do you think this is the textbook for? Which level?
Ma'am, could be higher secondary because of a few terminology, for example, or higher
Like?
education.
Okay. What tells you? Can you give me some words or expressions that tell you that this is for higher secondary?
Ma'am, it is purely in very short the history of virus, and you have terminology like replication cycle, genome, and these are all from higher education.
Okay.
Possibly
What
above.
about the use? Okay. What about this different theories? Somebody's mic is on, they're just speaking to somebody else. Can you just हाँ चाय पिला देंगे आप माइक को तो ऑफ कर दीजिए. Somebody's
Yeah.
all right.
Okay.
So different theories have aimed at unifying our views of virology to provide an answer. Look at this. You find this in a textbook.
Seemed to me it was a
No.
Unifying our seemed to you that it was a
somewhere along the lines of a journal article, because it was less theoretical than C, which had citations. So it was perhaps a longer. C was longer
Yes.
than B, so this is a shorter journal article versus C, which was a longer research paper, perhaps.
Ma'am,
But
this
it
could
was-
be an abstract.
Okay.
This could be an abstract.
Very good. This could be an abstract. Fine. See, text C, you have citations.
Yes.
So we are all held up with a lot of citations. So this is very clear. But does just the presence of citations make it academic? See, I just leave that for you to think about. What about text D? Where would you
something
find
like a
this?
blog post, something that you would, because it's unsubstantiated a lot. They don't define what they mean by
Yes.
media. They don't define what they mean by
Yes.
and broad generalizations. So I thought it was either a Facebook post or a blog post, something of an opinion piece.
Okay.
Could be also an essay by a
Now,
student.
Yes, exactly. This D is a student assignment that was turned in my class. When I asked them to write about what would happen if the media never told them about the virus. So that was a task that was given to them, and this was the response. So the first one was a magazine article. The second one was a PubMed article abstract, and it was part of an abstract, or maybe it was part of a longer research paper. And the third one was from a book, actually. And this book is for higher education. Okay. And the fourth one, like you rightly pointed out, it was from a student assignment. So what is academic writing then? Academic writing is clear, it is concise, it is focused, it is structured and backed up by evidence. Its purpose is to aid the reader's understanding. It has a formal tone and style, but is not complex all the time and does not require the use of long sentences and complicated vocabulary. Vocabulary that is important as register, as discipline-specific words, yes, but it's not always necessary to use complicated vocabulary. And having said that, each subject discipline will have certain writing conventions, vocabulary, and types of discourse. So it's always better to go back to the research journal that you're willing to publish in, that you're wanting to publish in, and check with your supervisor what kind of conventions, what kind of vocabulary can go in. So academic writing is planned and focused because it answers questions and demonstrates an understanding of the because it is coherent, it is written in a logical order, and it brings together related points and material. It is formal in tone and style, it uses appropriate language and tenses, and it is clear, concise, and balanced. So with that, I do not know how much time is left, so I don't want to be unceremoniously cut down by Zoom. So I'm just opening this for a couple of questions if you have any, because I have more slides to go by, but then I wouldn't be able to finish. So I'm just opening this up for discussion now. Yes, any
early
questions?
on in the workshop, you said that, sorry, the steps need to be taken in order to ensure that our effort does not go to waste, that we constantly
Right.
check in with our supervisors and journals, etc., so that we're on the right path. So could you elaborate a little
Yes.
bit on that? How do you
Right.
know that you're on the right path, and what are the steps for those checks and balances?
What you need to do is reading up in the journal that you're planning to publish in. You learn from other people's publications. So you just read a couple of articles because they are likely to be in your own discipline. So read up, look at what kinds of words, what is the level of language that they are using, what are the kinds of studies that they have done, what is the size, sample size, all of that. That will kind of help you. So you can just pick up 3 or 4 articles from this research journal that you're wishing to publish in, and that will help you. The depth of the study, the expanse of the study, the amount of, the number of pages that you write, the kind of vocabulary that you use, that will surely inform you. And if it is for a PhD degree, also you look at good publications. Probably the other dissertations written with your supervisor, the older ones, that will tell you what the supervisor wants from you. So you just have to kind of, what should I say, you kind of have to mimic what these people have done, learn from them, and see that it gets reflected in your own work. Because sometimes, don't quote me on this because this is off the actual meeting time, but supervisors are nasty many times. And they just don't get along. So you need to be very clever and sometimes wicked to understand your supervisor. So just get into what they want, find out what they want, and just do that. That will make your life easier. Because what one supervisor says, the other will not agree. These are very, very strongly opinionated people. So if you go to another supervisor and ask them, okay, this is what I'm working on, so can you please help me? And if that supervisor happens to be on the opposite side, you're going to be in trouble. So don't ever leave your supervisor's side if one is allotted already to you. So it's always better to be on the good side of your supervisors. So don't quote me on this, but this is something that I have found out. Being a research scholar and working in as a supervisor for many students. I'm not one of them, but then I know many people who are.
Excuse me, ma'am.
It's always better to go with what your supervisor has. Yes, next question.
Ma'am, could you suggest any good books on academic writing, especially for science students?
There are plenty of books that are available right now for science students. I'm not able to give you. Maybe we can continue with the chat process. I can find something and let you know. Is that all right if I just post it in the group a little later?
Yeah, sure.
Because of my
yes, ma'am.
Off my head, I don't remember anything.
Ma'am,
Sure, ma'am.
Okay.
since you are from ELT background as well, can you suggest a few online ELT journals for the beginners, from where we can start our learning?
Start your learning. You want to look at journals for learning? Learning
Well,
what?
ma'am, in the sense of their writing.
Okay, what level are you in? What are you studying?
Ma'am,
Are you at an MA level or are you a PhD scholar? What are you?
Ma'am, I'm at the PhD level. But any
Okay.
online
So,
ELT journals, yes.
there are plenty of journals. There are Scopus Index journals, Cambridge journals, TESOL quarterlies, all of that. So it depends on what area that you're working in. So maybe even this question we can continue discussing in the chat platform. Because ELT journals, ELT is such a huge discipline. You have a journal specifically for a particular skill or area. So this is a very broad question. So I do not know how to answer this. So I can just say Cambridge Online or TESOL quarterly or something like that. ELTJ is an Indian journal. So it depends on what areas that you're working on. Because you just can't go and download and read. No, you don't. Your reading will have a focus. You're reading for something. You're reading to learn something. Now, what is this something? It's not like a storybook that you just read. You need to have a purpose for reading. That is how you don't waste your time. Because many of my students I have seen in my career, that they just say, I'm reading. They just don't know why they are reading. They don't know what they're reading for. They're just reading. I mean, you can just read a storybook. You can just read Harry Potter. But you can't read a journal like that. So reading for entertainment is different from reading for research. We need to make that distinction. Any other questions?
Okay, thank you. Actually, the station.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm not able to hear you. Yes, go ahead, please.
Excuse me, ma'am. Do you approve to write with passive our dissertation?
Okay, what do you want? I didn't get your question. Samar.
Yeah. Do you approve? Yeah. Do you approve to write with passive voice instead of active voice while we are passive instead of active voice?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you approve that?
Most of the.
Yeah.
Yes. Most of the academic writing gets written in passive voice. Yes.
Okay. So
it gets written in.
Second question, if you don't mind,
your voice is not audible.
If you don't mind, ma'am, if you think that could avoid well, it's.
I'm not able to hear you at all, Samar. I'm so sorry. Can you just put your question in the chat box? I have just opened the chat box. Can you just put the question in the chat box? Samar.
Okay.
Because your voice is just singing.
Your question later on. Also.
I love music.
Ma'am, sorry to interrupt you.
Yes.
Yeah. Those participants who want to share the questions, they can share later also as the time is up. So we have to conclude as the session.
Yes.
Over. There are only 4 minutes left
Yes.
on the session.
Yes, I can see that. Yes.
Yeah. Thank
Go
you.
ahead, Vasim.
Thank you very much. So I on behalf of all. Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay. So I, on behalf of Boston Education and Welfare Society, take this opportunity to propose a vote of thanks to all those who contributed directly or indirectly to today's workshop on academic writing for higher education. At the outset, I would like to thank our honorable resource person for the workshop, Dr. Shree Deepa, for this enlightening and wonderful session on academic writing for higher education. We are really thankful to you, ma'am, for blessing us with your presence and making this workshop thought-provoking, meaningful, and an interactive one. Our heartfelt thanks to Ms. Narji Barua, who has been awarded with ample degree from University of Hyderabad for a support in collaborating in this workshop. Our heartfelt thanks to Dr. Mohammed Muzamil also, who has been our resource person in different workshops on research methodology and these softwares, who has been our participant also today. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation to worthy participants who took their valuable time and blessed us with their presence and participated actively to make this workshop a grand success. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity to take place on record our hearty thanks to Boston Education and Welfare Society for organizing this thought-provoking workshop on academic writing, which I believe has helped all the participants in fruitful way. We have an upcoming 3-day international level faculty development and student training workshop in collaboration with IIT Bombay. And we are planning, as ma'am has already told in session, so we are planning 1-week workshop on academic writing and research methodology soon. The brochures and links for the same will be shared in WhatsApp groups and your mail also. So I again thank respected ma'am and worthy participants for taking time out and being with us today. We will send the feedback link also in your mail and WhatsApp groups. You can fill the feedback form and send us till tomorrow. And the certificates will be given in a week. With these kind words, we come to the end of today's workshop on academic writing. Hope to see you again in our future workshops. Happy learning, keep growing, stay home, safe, healthy, and strong. Have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wasim, and I thank all the participants for patiently listening to me. And I had a great time with all of you. Hope to see you again. I think we'll keep the WhatsApp chat group active so that we'll find ways of helping one another. All right. So stay home, stay safe, be healthy, be happy. Most importantly, try and learn to be happy. Thanks, all of you. It was a great time being with you. Thank you so much. I sign off. Thank you.